United States and Iran held crucial talks in Oman as a last-ditch effort to avert conflict. U.S. Envoy Steve Witkoff and Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi led their respective delegations in Muscat. These negotiations come after days of military posturing, sanctions, and a series of sharp public threats. Iranian state media described the talks as indirect. There was no indication yet of the Iranian and American officials meeting directly. Images published by the Oman Foreign Ministry shows both sides meeting separately with Oman's Foreign Minister Bad Bil Hamd al-Busadi. While official comments from both sides are awaited, Iran's ambassador to India has reiterated that Iran doesn't want war, but Tehran is prepared for everything.
They have so many information about us. I want to say that they know us very well, and every movement should see the consequences and the risky. What Iran announced several times, we don't war at all, but we are ready for any options.
At the heart of negotiations is Iran's nuclear program, particularly its uranium enrichment activities. While Tehran insists the Oman-mediated talks will be centered solely on its nuclear program, Washington also wants to discuss Tehran's backing for militant groups in the region and its ballistic missile program. However, the topics of discussion in today's talks remain unclear. Hours before the crucial talks, Tehran issued a broadside. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi set the tone, saying that the country enters diplomacy with open eyes and a steady memory of the past year. Araghchi also said that equal standing, mutual respect, and mutual interest are not rhetoric, but pillars of a durable agreement. U.S. President Donald Trump has publicly emphasized that diplomacy is preferred, but has not ruled out military options if negotiations fail. Ahead of the talks, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt reiterated that Washington had multiple options on the table aside from diplomacy.
Diplomacy moving forward. The president has obviously been quite clear in his demands of the Iranian regime. Zero nuclear capability is something he's been very explicit about, and he wants to see if a deal can be struck. And while these negotiations are taking place, I would remind the Iranian regime that the president has many options at his disposal, aside from diplomacy, as the commander-in-chief of the most powerful military in the history of the world.
Iranian leaders have responded with stern warnings of retaliation should the U.S. resort to force. In the latest, Tehran has showcased its advanced missile capabilities. Its long-range Khorramshahr-4 hypersonic ballistic missile have been deployed for the first time in the so-called underground missile cities. As per the U.S. estimates, Iran has the largest stockpile of ballistic missiles in West Asia. Israel is traditionally in striking distance of the missiles. The arsenal comprises multiple missiles which have a range of 2,000 kilometers. Sejid, for instance, is one of the most potent missiles, as it can fly at over 17,000 kilometers per hour. Its new model being developed shall have an expected range of 2,500 kilometers. Qadr, Khorramshahr, and Khaybar can also fire munitions 2,000 kilometers away. Senior Iranian officials say missiles and launchers have already been prepared in anticipation of a potential surprise strike by the United States. Reports are also indicating an increased military cooperation between Iran, Russia, and China, especially after the 12-day war back in June. With tensions reaching a fever pitch, will the negotiations diffuse tensions, or will it take both sides closer to an all-out conflict? Well, let's find out. We are now being joined live on the broadcast by Mr. Hatif Boutaleb, Geopolitics and International Relations Analyst at AOB Group. Thank you so much for joining us, and welcome back to WION. So here we are again, another round of high-level negotiations. What can we expect?
Well, I think that Donald Trump, he wants to control every aspect of these negotiations. What we expect is to really push the Iranian regime to go back on its first, of course, nuclear program, but also the ballistic program. But this everybody knows this, and Trump remains fully ready for military engagement in parallel, which means that the outcome of these negotiations is not yet sure, because what's behind the Iranian regime is still blurred. We don't know what are Iranians, what are they really prepared. Three things, according to me, that Iran is definitely based on. The Iran foreign policy is based on. First, the Iranians do seek to have the bomb. This is certain. They still have 400 kilos of enriched uranium, and they look for having a bomb to stand like with the North Korean regime. It is for them an immunity guarantee. Second aspect is Iran has indeed a regional agenda of hegemony and dominance, and they are a third aspect, and they are playing time. They are trying to save time until the end of Donald Trump's mandate term. So basically, while having these three very clear stances that are strategic to the Iranian regime, you can't negotiate for lasting peace. I'm careful in hearing these declarations of Iranian officials, Susan, and when the Iranians say they are not willing, they are not aiming for war and they want peace, this is absolutely wrong. And I can tell you this from Morocco, insist on that. Last year or a couple of years ago, an Iranian rocket has targeted a city in South Morocco, leaving even casualties. You could say why Iran is targeting Morocco, that is 5,000 or probably 6,000 kilometers away from its border, because Iran has clearly a hegemonic agenda in the region and is a very extremely dangerous regime. Another thing to signal and to stress on is that definitely by engaging in these negotiations, unfortunately, Donald Trump abandons the Iranian demonstrators. It seems that the fate of this revolution has definitely been sealed. There won't be any regime change. And we can understand, of course, after such barbaric repression, leaving 30,000 dead, who would dare in Iran to defy the government? People are afraid and scared from the revolutionary guard. So what is expected now is to come to a kind of a common ground, try to find a common ground, mainly, according to me, for Donald Trump to please for now, his close friends, who are Vladimir Putin, which surprised everyone to see that Donald Trump has a picture of Vladimir Putin on his desk as president of the United States. This is unprecedented, and China. And I think that this is also seems paradoxal. Of course, the United States are still tackling economically China, but they look for common ground with them. And we know the good relations between the Iranian regime and these two big powers, Russia and China. And I think that that's what is aimed really by Donald Trump, is to try to find a common ground with his big allies / opponents in the world, who are China and India and Russia. And of course, concerning the military option, we are few months away from these elections, the midterm elections, and key donators of Donald Trump and the Republicans are aligned on the strategy, Israeli strategy, that incarnated by Benjamin Netanyahu. And I think that Donald Trump thinks about them as well, because they are key donators, right, and he has to secure them for the upcoming election.
Yeah, so there's talk right now. You talk about the midterms coming up on the one hand, and what the American public might think if there is some kind of strike, even though it's limited, against Iran. But also, these talks are happening in the backdrop of the Winter Olympics. And it appears that these negotiations always benefit the Iranian side because they're negotiating for the sake of negotiating. They're buying time. And now they are in a situation that it's very unlikely that the United States would strike Iran in any kinetic way. So it doesn't make sense that President Trump thinks he's any different from any previous administrations in trying to bring Iran to a fair negotiation table.
No, yeah, I agree with you. It seems a kind of a backdrop for Trump. He has definitely left the option of a regime change, which is quite unlikely because this, of course, it was a momentum. At least the Supreme Guide should resign, and I think now it is definitely behind. He will stay in power as a terrible autocratic person leading or harming Iran more than leading this country. But for Donald Trump, it is not in his, obviously, what we can say, it wasn't in his priorities. This has erupted, these demonstrations out of nowhere because of the deterioration of living conditions in Iran. But of course, it is for Donald Trump, it is an unpredicted upheaval. So he had previously set up this peace council. He has changed his relation with his allies, traditional allies, which are the Europeans. He's aiming for Greenland. He's redesigning the American policy in the Western Hemisphere called the Donero Doctrine. So among all these priorities, Iran seems to be very, very behind. And what he's now is Donald Trump is looking for probably is to check how far is the actually the nuclear program, and to try to not prevent Iran, such a dangerous regime, to get the nuclear weapon. And I think this could be, if the negotiations end up to this result, it could be at least an achievement. But of course, the fate of the demonstrators and demonstrations have been definitely sealed, unfortunately. Yeah.
We'll see. Yeah,
Thank
definitely.
You,
I mean, it definitely does seem the demonstrators and the Iranians that we talk to say that these negotiations seem like a slap in the face to those protests and protesters that were killed and went to the streets to risk their lives. But we'll watch. We'll see what happens. Thank you so much for joining us on WION. I look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Thank you.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.